2026 is going to be an awesome year. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up. First off, we got Foundations of Recovery. This is our flagship program. We're starting it in January.
This is for anyone, man, woman, or couple who wants to come and reclaim their heart from shame, trauma, and betrayal. We start off with an education on all sorts of principles, give you the common language. We feed you from a fire hose in terms of all things recovery.
It is such a great start to recovery. And we get at the roots of things, Tyler. This isn't like any other program. Like, this is our healing journey in process, and Foundations is where we begin.
If you look at the value that you're getting there to kick off a good recovery with all of the right education, all of the right language, and a team to get you started while also being directed by Brannon and myself through the whole process, what a deal.
So if you're interested, if you're struggling, if you've been wanting to do something for a long time, jump into this. This only comes around every so often, and we would love to have you there.
Click the link in the description to sign up for it. And to make it even sweeter, we're also including a raffle for a free pass to the Radiant Dawn retreat. Anyone who signs up for Foundations will be added to the raffle for that free Radiant Dawn pass. If you're a man and you sign up for Foundations, your name still gets entered, and you can give that pass away if you win it to any woman that you want to.
So what you're saying, Tyler, is if you sign up and participate in Foundations, you could possibly go to Radiant Dawn for free?
That's exactly what I'm saying, which is crazy because Foundations by itself is already an insane value.
Man, I sound so salesy. But it actually is awesome. So come to Foundations. And even if you don't come to Foundations, sign up for Radiant Dawn. It's beyond therapy, the best healing experiences that you can have.
Click the link below and come join us. I'm trying to be perfect and it's burning me out. What can I do? Welcome to the Real Talk Recovery Podcast with the Therapy Brothers.
We're brothers, we're therapists, and we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery.
All right, Tyler, before we get into that, let me share a review here. It says, thank you. Thank you for this amazing podcast and insight into addiction and life in general. One of the best gifts the brothers give is not discussing any politics or any social political issues, just good advice and insight that is painless to listen to.
Love the review. I don't know that we're always totally non-political, but we try to just offer the best advice we know how to give.
Well, I mean, if you want, go over to Glenn Beck or something, if you want that stuff,
Yeah. I don't know. We kind of operate inside of an industry where there's definitely some really strong feelings on both sides. And I don't think you or I really shy away from those feelings, but by and large, I don't think that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to just provide help for people as they're trying to work a certain path.
Well, Tyler, I think you and I should maybe do a separate episode altogether on, like we talk about staying out of the box and living with a heart at peace and all of those things. And on a macro level, there's a lot of persecuting going on, victimhood going on both sides of every fence out there. And I think there's a way to live in peace and to love people exactly where they're at and to give space for people with where they're at. And so, anyways, totally different topic. That'd be a fun one.
That would be a good topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But let's get to our guest today. So, David, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. If you could give us just a little bit of background, kind of fill us in as to what's going on with you, and we'll go from there.
Sure. I'm happy to be on here. I've listened to you guys for maybe about 8 months now, and really found a lot of insight with it. So my journey with pornography began pretty young, but it wasn't like my parents were very strict. They weren't leaving porn lying around or anything. I think it was like my dad had fitness magazines, and then on the back they had ads that kind of triggered things. Curiosity, I would say. So I was very good at drawing. I started drawing pictures. and eventually got into online porn with the dial-up, which, like if you're sneaking down in the middle of the night is very loud. I don't know how I got away with it as much as I did.
Waiting 15 minutes for a picture to come up.
Yes, it would just kind of go like that. It was a big reward system, it's like of patience and everything. And so I would try to do a lot of those things, and a lot out of curiosity, even scrolling through the dictionary, trying to find words that were just, but I couldn't get it from my parents. They were very controlling. Even my mom, we found, is very narcissistic in a lot of ways. And then every time I got caught, it was shame and guilt and all that. And look what you're doing to your mother. Look, you're making us so upset. But a lot of times that became my teacher. A lot of things I learned through porn, even without seeing videos necessarily. I'm just understanding that this is what people like. This is how they do it. And I guess that's what I'm going to do. And in a lot of ways, I'm working through that with my own bitterness, rather, that, hey, if you caught me with this, why couldn't you point me in the right direction? But understanding that they themselves maybe didn't know intimacy, or they didn't know connection, or they couldn't really navigate me through that. So a lot of times I really just tried to hide who I was as a person from them, and secretly dealing with my curiosity on my own. I'm always trying to be good, and then always getting caught. Eventually I met my wife. I knew that my wife wasn't okay with pornography. I knew that she wasn't okay with any of that. I wanted a good woman, to marry, and I wanted to be better myself. So it seemed like a good fit. I'm like, I can do this. I got this. So I was good for a while. I didn't really know what true intimacy was. I just wanted to be the best person from her. Just try to show her my good side at all times. I don't know if looking back, I was selfish in a lot of ways, but it really came to a head when we moved to get away from my family. My mother's narcissistic tendencies had really waned in my marriage, and my wife and my relationship was pretty strained. We had 3 kids at the time, and so we moved down south to be closer to her family and try to save the marriage. And that's really where I really disconnected. I had abandoned my family in a lot of ways. I felt abandoned by my wife, and I started having an affair at work. And that cascaded into more porn addiction, several more affairs over a period of 4 years, until I was discovered back in, I want to say 2021, October of 2021. And it's funny because, not funny, haha, but when I I started listening to you guys a little bit later. And when you talk about the right way to do a disclosure, it was the opposite. Whatever the right way was, I did the opposite, the complete opposite of everything. She's like, "What's this?" I'm like, "Nothing." And then just a lot of bad, half truths, outright lies. I'd gotten away with lies for a lot in my life, trying to set things right on the path. And it wasn't going to work this time if I wanted to make this work. So for about, I would say from October to December, I tried to do everything my own way. I was in full denial. I didn't disclose truthfully. I still messaged and I still looked at porn. And it really wasn't until we did an intensive week-long sit down with someone that really they drew me to an understanding of who God was. I reestablished my relationship with God, and I've been about porn free for about over a year now, since that time. So I've seen tremendous results with my kids. When I used to be distracted trying to chase porn or message people, now I'm devoting that to my family, and it's been really, really amazing. It's been difficult. I've had to go from hiding who I was to trying to show everyone who I was, admitting my flaws, admitting my faults. It's been difficult on my wife to sit with her when she's in pain. And to her credit, when she found out, I thought, well, this marriage is over. But she decided, God has shown me that I want to give you another chance. And so we're in that right now. So a year in, here I am, and can choose so many things to be grateful for. I understand from a point in my life that there was a large hole that I was trying to fill. And I'm working to fill it. I would say from being a creator now, there's still, it's like a drain maybe, but sometimes the drain feels larger. And to make everything work, I know I can't mess up, if that makes sense. You know, my wife has dealt with abuse, like spiritual abuse and family abuse and everything else like that. And she was like right on the edge of just like, I can't take any more lies. I can't take anything anymore. You know, sometimes I hear people on your show and a gentleman's like relapsing and his wife is like, well, I'm going to make it work. I don't feel like I have that particular threshold in this relationship. And not that she's not giving me grace. It's just what she can take. So I know that for me, I have to get this right, and I'm willing to get it right. But there's a certain fear that hits me a lot. And that fear is getting it wrong. And I understand logically, I can't be perfect. No one will ever be perfect. And, but my perfection, I guess, is not messing up again. And I feel that pressure to put everything in line, to put God first. You know, over the course of the year, I read like 180 books. So I'm trying to not burn out on this pressure that I have to get it right. And I gave my whole story before to say that there's this pattern of me really trying to get it right and then going back, and then really trying to get it right and going back. And I'm looking to avoid that. But I do feel just intensely burnt out in some cases. And I know that's a very dangerous place to be logically, because that's where you start to revert and start to give up and start to say, well, I deserve this, so I'm going here. So yeah, I guess that's just where I'm at right now in a large nutshell.
Okay, so if I were to just recap this in a really short and simple way, what I'm hearing is that you're finally in a place where you're living, wanting to be an engaged husband, an honest man. Your desire is to be in full recovery, to be a family man, to save what you got. Your heart says you want to do it, right up until the point that you put a layer of judgment on yourself over the top, that if you don't get everything perfectly right, you lose everything. And it's the pressure you're feeling about that judgment on your life and yourself that's actually burning you out even more so than the work itself.
That's probably a very good way to say it. Yes.
So you're fighting in this internal battle, you know, that's on one hand saying, I got to do all these things. And you want to, because you've actually seen results in the last year that you like. Mm-hmm. It sounds like you're actually, if we're looking at the trajectory of what you want in your life, you're on the trajectory up right now, but you're not able to enjoy that trajectory as much as maybe you'd like to, because there's always this thing in the back of your mind that's saying, but you're going to mess up sometime. And when you do, you're going to lose everything.
Yes. That's an excellent way to say it. And I think, I don't think people understand that. My wife doesn't understand that, because she's like, well, it's a decision you make. So if you just don't make that decision, why would you? And my therapist even says that. She's like, it sounds like you're afraid of just walking out your door and just making a mistake. And it's like, it's not that simple. But to me, it is that fear. Yeah. Of a pattern in my life that I want to avoid. And I'm not exactly sure how to. Yeah, it is a lot of my own pressure, I believe. Yeah.
It sounds a lot like your recovery is like one massive game of Jenga a little bit, where it's like you're building this tall tower and you're pretty proud of it. And it's like, dang, like, look how high that's getting. I've gone a year. This is good. This is like, hey, wife, check this out. Look how high. But it's teetering like this. And the more you build it, the more chance it has to just and then release, and you don't have to read all these books and be so perfect and be okay anymore, because boom, it all fell down. But oh shoot, Now there's consequence to that, and it's consequence that I don't want. And so it's scary as it's teetering right here. Some things have to change. Your recovery doesn't have to be a game of Jenga. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah, I guess I understand. I accept the reality that I will be in recovery for my life, right? It's not something that goes away. But I fight with that feeling of like, well, I found God. Shouldn't that fix it? And I found these answers. Shouldn't that fix it?
But David, there's a reality that you're not wanting to accept. So when you talk about finding God, when you talk about your marriage, if you find God, if you're saved and you find God, if you're born again, whatever, right? Like whatever we want to call it, does that mean that you're like twinkled to heaven and that you're now perfect? What does it mean? What does finding God mean?
It means that I guess I would say to me, it means I'm no longer doing this by myself. And with the salvation that I'm able to have the past sins forgiven, and I can start fresh anew.
So does your sobriety and kind of your perfectionism, does that keep you kind of safe? Like, does that atone for your own sins? Does that like make it so that you're good enough that?
Logically, no. I know that, but I don't know if I know it. I know it here in my head, maybe not in the heart. I wrestle with it. I guess that's the best way to say is I wrestle with it.
Okay, so when we talk about finding God, and Tyler and I have talked about this a lot. Tyler's talked about how in his darkest moments, that's when he's really felt God. When he's felt, and I don't want to speak for you, Tyler, but when he's felt the most broken, that's when he knows that God is there. And I believe in that God too. I believe in a God who loves us in our brokenness. Yeah. And so logically, what I'm saying is true. But when you say that you found God, have you found a God of grace, a God of forgiveness? Or have you found God? God is there. You believe in God, but you're still trying to be good enough it sounds like for your wife and for God.
Well, I guess for me, it's a lot of when I've taken my foot off the pedal in the past, I get very relaxed and just let things flow around me. And then eventually I'm like, oh, how did I end? I don't want to say, how did I end up here and not take responsibility, but I feel like I have to always be aware and alert of every feeling, because I then will naturally ignore other people's feelings or my wife's feelings or even my feelings. Like if you're saying, hey, how do you feel? I'm like, ooh, that takes me a while to think about. Right. So my natural state of comfort is pretty lackadaisical. It's very chill and doesn't really do the work. Right. So I don't know, I know God is sitting there, and just me being here, I do believe that me being here, he loves me. I don't have to necessarily perform for him, but I also think that if I don't do work, then it becomes just, then I'm a tree that doesn't produce any fruit, and I just sit in the soil, sucking up all the water, if that makes sense. So what, I don't know any other way to avoid just taking up space in that sense, other than to not take my foot off the pedal. If that makes sense.
So could we maybe look at it a slightly different way here? Because I think what you're bringing up is actually a good point. Like, theoretically, if we really fully understand our value in God's eyes, and we know that love is already there, then that naturally is going to lead us to want and desire to produce good fruit, right? But I think that's where Brannon and I see this a lot, where a lot of our clients get in the game of feeling like the producing of the fruit is what qualifies them for God's love, and then it doesn't work well, because it's like Well, let me just give you this example. Brandon and I went to go visit with a cousin of ours who's a really good friend of ours in Texas last year. And one of the things that we did is we went to this place where they had these really like extremely fast go-karts, right? And we went and did these go-karts. And what you do is you put the pedal to the metal and you go for it. And by the time we were done with it, none of us were like, dang, I'm burned out. I'm tired. Like, let's be done. We were like, dang it, we don't have enough time or we don't want to spend more money. But man, that was awesome. I would do it again. I'd keep going. I would go back and put the pedal to the metal for the next 8 hours if I had the resources to do it. Right.
Yeah.
And you even said this earlier in reference to recovery. I've accepted that I'll be in recovery the rest of my life. Well, even that, the focus is on, I've accepted it, rather than like, dude, you get to be in recovery the rest of your life. You get to be a more honest man. You get more engagement. You get more vibrance and color. You get more growth. You get to grow the rest of your life because you've chosen to live a certain set of principles. You've chosen to live with integrity. You've chosen to live with self-care. You've chosen to live with engagement. You've chosen to live with care for other people. Like, you get to be in recovery the rest of your life. Like, dang, you're going to go slam the foot down on the gas and go, let's go for it. Right. But instead it's like, oh man, I'm so tired. Like, I'm tired of driving. Like, if I don't drive this, then I'm going to lose everybody. Everyone's going to get out of the car and I'm going to be left all alone. Like, and I got to be perfect at this. And that's the issue is it's the way that it's being seen more than all of the things you do or are not doing.
Is that an internal flaw, or is that something that can be changed, I guess,
yeah. I wonder, and I don't know, this is what I think we should partially explore is I wonder if part of what's going on there is the way that it's being seen. Can you change that? I believe you can. Like, let's one more thing, I'm thinking of like watching a sports game. Have you ever seen a game where like the team that's supposed to lose really badly gets way ahead somehow and they're going to beat this big team that they're not supposed to beat?
Yeah.
And then what do? They end up going into like defense mode and they end up not playing the way that they were, just open and doing what they could because they're playing with house money. And then the good team actually comes back and eventually overtakes them. And all they had to do was maintain the frame of mind they had when they were winning. And you've been winning for the last year. You've started to figure out how to win. And now you're going into like stall game mode of like, like, I don't know what it's like to win. Like, I'm not supposed to know what it's like to win. Like, oh no, like I'm supposed to need to perform in order to be good enough.
Yeah.
And you can change that. That belief system can just be like anything else, be made aware of, to be challenged, to be, acted opposite against. And eventually you can get it so it doesn't have to have that power over your life like it maybe does.
That is encouraging. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I love what Tyler's saying. I think he gets a little fired up because we see this so much, David, where, kind of in our culture and where we're at, what happens a lot of times is people go into church leaders and they say, I have this problem. I need to get fixed. And they say, okay, you need to pray every day. You need to read your scriptures. You keep coming to church, like do these things and that will help you. And a lot of times it does help because it lays out some structure that says like, do these things instead of what you have been doing. And it puts some structure in their life. But it doesn't last because what happens is they do those things with the expectation of wanting to stop this behavior and get better. And there's a whole other reason to do those things. So like all these books that you've read, David, like you've read them because they're your dailies, like reading good books feeds you and that's good. And that's, but tell me one of the books that you've read, if you don't mind.
I've read several, porn addiction books.
Okay.
I've read some, adventure books and things of that nature. Some of them were like, God Loves Me and I Love Myself. Okay. Really trying to build confidence in myself to like, because at the start, it was like, do you like yourself? No, I hate myself. I would say that. And it's like, I And I, at one point, even counted the many times that I would say to myself something negative through the day. And it was like 30 times a day. I was almost saying, like, you're a stupid, you're an idiot, that kind of stuff.
Beating yourself up. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of my topics really revolved in the beginning around just accepting my flaws and just being like, and learning to accept who I was, and then also try to find ways to eat better, to live better, for my brain, so that I could take care of myself. Because I can't take care of myself, I can't take care of others.
Did that help, David? Did it help to read those books, and did it help you feel better?
To a degree, yes, because it was almost an addictive behavior in itself to replace one addictive behavior with another, which I'm like, well, I got to be careful about that. But at the same time, when you say Jenga, that speaks to me a lot, because I'm really a lot of the book information I do put into as a Jenga piece into my building. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes I'm like, oh shoot, I forgot about that Jenga piece. Okay, yep, now a refreshment, and trying to forgive myself in a way for like, oh, how could I forget that? But I do. It's natural. So, but yeah.
But here's the thing: why that Jenga piece can be problematic is God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. So if you're doing things from a place of fear, even if they're seemingly good things, it's setting you up for failure. And you can build that tower high. And so you really got to examine, being motivated is important. You've used fear of perfectionism and being good enough as your motivation. So it's scary waters to go out on when you say, okay, I'm going to take away this fear, and then I'm going to find some other motivation. This is what Tyler was talking about. I'm going to find some other motivation. When you've used somewhat of fear to be good enough, to prove yourself, to be perfect enough, you think, and I don't believe this about you, David, you think you're going to be a blob on the couch that does nothing. Mm-hmm. But you're a new man now who knows God, wants to know God, wants to fight for your wife. There's motivation beyond just, I have to do it or else I'll be a lazy piece of crap. Mm-hmm. And really, it's a process of discovering and really knowing yourself more about why you do what you do. What are your intentions? Where does that come from? Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I mean, there was looking into the future, and it's like, they were like, well, what do you want your story to be? Right. And I was like, oh, I want my story to really be, he found out, he turned things around, and sometimes you hear these stories of alcoholics, and they're like, one day he just decided he was never going to have another drink again. I mean, I never saw my father touch another drink. Right. Mm-hmm. That's such that motivates children to be like, wow, I just really appreciate that about my father. And I'd like my kids to say something of that nature about myself as well. But to go back to your thing, that does motivate me, but it is pressure from fear, I suppose, of not fulfilling that story, or not being able to have people say that about me at the end.
Mm-hmm. David, could I just maybe go along with what Brannon's saying for a minute and just kind of share sort of a little bit of my process as I've been working my own recovery, because he's hitting straight on this. And I've actually been trying to think of this. I've been trying to figure out how to put it into a graphic for people to see, because in my head, it's one way, but I have a hard time speaking it. But when it comes to this idea of motivation, I see it as like layers of my own journey. And the first layer of motivation was just, don't be seen for being a failure. So I'm going to do everything I can to perform, to try to make sure everybody sees me as good enough. And then that was like the first layer. And I would say that was like pure shame based. And by the way, there was no integrity in that. It's funny how there's a direct correlation between how comfortable you get with yourself and your integrity level. because you don't have to hide anything when you start to feel more and more comfortable with yourself. So the first one was just like perform at all costs so everyone sees you as good. And then the next level of motivation after it all broke loose was kind of the level I think you're at, which was, man, Tyler, like you can't mess up anymore because you ruin everybody else's life and you're going to lose everything if you mess up again. And both of those things are forms of motivation. But if those are the only two places we ever find our motivation, we're destined for eventual failure, because that's where the white knuckling all comes in. It's just fear-based only. But then eventually there was this new layer that came in that was like, hey, maybe I'm not that bad. Like maybe life kind of feels good to be lived a little bit differently. And then there was a next level of motivation that came through a lot of work and some spiritual stuff and a lot of other things that came into actually, not only am I maybe not that bad, like I'm awesome. Like God wants to use me. And I need to actually be able to give myself more fully to him. And I'm actually a good person. And then that motivation became motivation itself. Right. And now there's this ongoing like fuel source. And as the habits start to develop, so right now you're in the midst of, developing habits. The things you're doing aren't bad. They're good. Like you should continue to keep doing the things that you're doing, but eventually you're going to be able to replace your current fuel source, fear of losing everything, with, even if you lost everything, you'd choose to do that anyway, because that's the kind of guy you want to be, because that's the kind of guy that you feel like God is calling you to be, not because he won't love you if you don't, but because he already loves you. And as you start to feel some of that, start to get a few wins, you're going to start to recognize that inside of you is not a guy who's like an imposter trying to convince everyone to stay with him, but a guy who's like, man, I got a lot to offer. Like my kids are so lucky that they've got a dad who wants to be engaged. And you know what? As badly as I've hurt my wife, and I'll take ownership for that, I'm going to continue to get better. And she's lucky. Like she's lucky to be in, with a man who wants so deeply to be invested in this relationship. Like, man, you start to see yourself in the mirror that way. What are you going to do when you see yourself in the mirror that way?
Keep going.
Yeah, you're gonna turn around and be like, "Hey, I want to keep moving here." And there's still flex for the grace to not be perfect at it. There's the commitment towards it.
But Tyler, that's an important point for you, David. Tyler just made a really good point. Fear is a great motivator. It's a great motivator, and I would say it's just as good of a motivator as life purpose is. But one thing that we don't stop and realize is what a great motivator life purpose is, in alignment with God, of like, this feels good just to be in my purpose. I don't do this stuff out of fear. But coming back to what we were saying about, if this is my life purpose and I fail or I fall and it's not, my motivation hasn't been out of fear, then I use that failure as more tuition and more feedback to solidify my purpose. I become strengthened by it rather than going to catastrophe land of, here it all comes. And so the fall, usually with the failures, when it's driven from life purpose, is much less of a fall, because it's like, it came back. I'm learning from this. Tune up. Wow, I need to tweak this. I need to learn from that. Interesting. I'm going to take that as feedback. When it's from fear, it's, I messaged a woman. That means my wife will leave me. She'll leave me anyways. So I might as well, contact that woman again. And, now I feel like crap about myself because I'm hiding this from my wife, because I can't be honest about how imperfect I am. So I need to numb out even more. So, and can you see the spiral that the fear-based model creates?
Yeah.
So, David, it feels like your motivation isn't all fear. Feels like you've done some darn good work and that you've really tried to involve God, but you're kind of admitting to us that, yes, that's still there. And I do want to talk to you a little bit about your wife. You say there's no threshold there for imperfections. I could see why she would probably feel that way, considering what she's been through.
Yeah.
And she's stuck with you through a lot. She's persevered. She wants to make your marriage work. And I don't know your wife, never met her. But I would guess that with a good therapist or just between the two of you, if you could have some conversations about.
David, did you lose Brannon?
No, I got him.
You could have some conversations with her about what do we do? How do we handle that? I always say you don't plan on relapse, but you prepare for it, and you prepare for it yourself, and you prepare for it in your relationship. How do we handle that? How's that going to go? How are we going to learn from that? What's the process for it? And I don't plan on ever doing it, but if it does happen, what are we going to do? And so I don't know where she's at with that or what those conversations would be like for you, David, but
that's a good conversation to have. I think one thing I've realized is my perception of honesty in some ways too. To me, honesty was like confession, right? It's like, oh, hey, I did this, and then dishonesty was obviously keeping everything and never telling anyone anything, right? And I'm trying to learn a different honesty where I'm like, hey, here's what I'm feeling, and here's what I'm struggling with, and not in a way of dumping, because I think for the last year, if I viewed authenticity as just me dumping all my fears upon her, which wasn't very good, because she's like, what is happening and where are you at? Like, are you going to be okay before us, or are you thinking of like leave? I don't understand. So yeah, she's gone through a lot, especially as I've made many mistakes, even without getting into porn or messaging other people. Like, there's a lot of mistakes I've made to probably give my fear and pass it on. But I'd like to be honest, and I'd like to be courageous, and those are things I established as things. So but
David, even if you messed up just a little bit and she divorced you, like it's over, boom.
Yeah.
Would you choose to be honest?
I would actually. Yeah. Okay. I don't think that would veer me off my path. I've emotionally prepared that she could choose at any time. If she's 3 years in, she's like, you know what, this is just too much pressure, and I'd like to start over with someone else. I've accepted that could be. There's that word, accepted again. But yeah,
that's okay.
Yeah, I've accepted that could be my life, and would that dive me back into where I was before? I don't believe so, because I really do have a passion to try to help other men who are stuck in pornography and maybe not willing to see it, but also want help. So that's kind of been more of my passion this year.
At all costs, avoid that dark place of secrecy and shame. Like if it requires you being honest about something, and she says, I'm done, then you're still in your integrity. You're not creating this horrific betrayal trauma with her of like, okay, let's go a few more years while I'm hiding a bunch of things from you until I get caught. It's just, I'm going to own it. I'm going to be me. I'm going to be an honest man, and love me or hate me, divorce me or not. I'm committed to that for my own individual recovery. So important.
I do want that.
Yeah, I hear it. I actually hear a lot of good work happening in your life right now, David. I kind of, it almost feels like you're trying to run the race faster than the race is intended to be run, a little bit, where if you were to just kind of stop and pause and say, if we were to look at it from like a broad perspective, where would you expect a guy like David to be in his recovery, this far into his recovery, with the story that you told us? And I think Brannon and I would probably both go, dang, he's making great progress. Like, he's doing pretty good for himself. Like, and I would say, I would go back to something Brannon said with this. To this day, my last line of defense is the fear of losing everything. It's not that it's gone away. It's just that I don't think about it or rely on it much, but it's there. And if I were to ever be in a situation, that would be the last thing that would pop in my head of like, all right, Ty, you choose this, you're choosing the loss of everything. Right. So it's okay that it's still there underneath the surface, but but we grow as we grow. And I hear this growth in you, that will become less and less the need to be the motivation, and more something else will grow into it. And when I look at like recovery, there's this dialectic that is, as a therapist, I was taught this when I was working for the drug courts of Southeastern Idaho, that as a therapist, I have to view every client at two places in the same meeting, which is, if they come in, I can tell them that I honestly believe that they can live the rest of their lives and not relapse. And I believe that that's true. And if they come in and say that they relapsed, okay, no big deal. Let's learn from it. Let's grow. What are you going to commit to? What are we going to do differently? This doesn't knock you off your path. Yeah. Both can be true. And but it's the growth mindset that we adopt it with. And that's, I tell people, like, if you were to have yourself start to slide, and you don't have to slide all the way down to a full relapse before you catch it. But the minute you notice the slide, if you're willing to do some learning, cool. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Right. But you better take advantage of everything that happens when you slide, because you're going to pay a high price for it. You might as well do some learning with it.
Right.
Right.
It's very good. I think that's what I'm trying to learn in some way, which is maybe taking some of the perfection is to include my wife in some of those conversations where I'm like, hey, I'm feeling this, instead of trying to go back to the old model of like, I got this, I can manage it. And then there's no real accountability there, I feel. For me anyway, in the past, if I'm like, I can manage it, then I haven't been able to manage it. So
David, we're running out of time, and we've had an amazing discussion today, and I don't think we've really gotten at the root of the problem with you. No. And and we won't have time to delve into it, but it's little pieces are like I see there of you really not wanting to disappoint people, your mom being narcissistic, your parents being shut down and not like connecting with you and talking you through certain things, you learning that hiding is the way at a young age. I don't know if you're the oldest child or an only child, or you're the oldest?
Oldest.
Yeah. How many kids in your family?
First of 7.
Yeah. Why would I think you're the oldest?
Because of the need to please.
Yeah. I abandoned my family. I should be there helping them and taking care of them. So you can see the pressure to be perfect, the pressure to take care of people. And the way you take care of people is by being good enough, right? You need to do some work there and let go of some things there. That's not, you've been put in those roles in your life, but that doesn't need to be your motivator to do good in your life, right? So, like I said, we can't delve into all of it today. I'd encourage you, I don't know if you've done some trauma work around your childhood and things like that, but I'd encourage you to go do some of that stuff, and it'll make a lot of what we've talked about with you today much easier to shift into a life full of purpose and power and fulfillment that way. So
I think what Brannon means by go and look at those things and do the work there is it's the belief systems themselves that are so ingrained that maybe they feel too automatic to actually, when you do some of that work there, you create space for new seeds to be sown, so to speak, and a new belief system can start to root itself and grow up out of that and go, oh, I don't have to be the guy that performs to be valuable. I don't have to be the one who manages everyone's feelings by being perfect. See, you hear those core beliefs that are there that have just, like Brannon picked it out, like, I abandoned my family. Oh, you did. Okay. But you also said in the same sentence, I needed to get some space for my family in order to figure out how to manage my own marriage. Yeah. Right. Oh, okay. There's a different belief in both of those statements. Like, which one's going to be more effective for you to hold on to and help you achieve long-term success? Right.
Yeah. So, that's very good. I'm willing to do that work, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
David, I love talking to guys like you. I mean, you've made some mistakes. You've created some messes, and you're facing it. You're dealing with it. Sounds like you're taking it one day at a time. And I hope you're not hearing from us. It's interesting when we talk about perfectionism and shame, and we're like, well, here's all the things you're doing wrong. Change all these things. I hope you understand that. And I'll speak for Tyler here too, that we love guys like you who are working it and doing the right things, and you're doing a lot of things right. So,
amen. I just want to finish with this because you're a spiritual guy. You reference your spirituality a lot, but you probably have heard this a lot. But when I think about the process that Paul went through. You know, he went from being Saul to Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Like he kind of followed a similar path where he was out making really poor choices. He was doing a lot of things to bring a lot of people down. And it wasn't until he was really smacked over the head by a confrontation with God and an angel that basically said, dude, like, straighten your life up. And what we don't know in the Bible is how long that process actually maybe really took him.
Mm-hmm.
But I imagine there was a similar pathway because he had to move from a place of operating from the way he was living, which I think was a cycle of shame, to having this fear instilled in him, the fear of God, to then eventually becoming one of God's greatest instruments. But it wasn't because he was acting from fear by the time he was one of God's greatest instruments.
Mm-hmm.
He was operating from a place of conviction. He knew
Mm-hmm.
who he was by the time he was this powerhouse, apostle for Christ. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he followed a similar journey. And that's why Brannon says, we love working with guys like you. Like, I love the story of Paul. I love seeing a living, real day version of the story of Paul. And I feel like I'm looking at that guy right now as I talk to you.
Wow.
And so that's the part you can embrace.
I appreciate that. Through this time period, I'm like, why can't it be more like Paul? Because I view Paul's journey as like very instant. So for you to say it and contextualize it in that way is very powerful to me. So I appreciate that.
David, thank you for blessing others' lives by being on here and being vulnerable and telling us about your struggles. So really appreciate it. If you guys found this helpful, please don't be shy to share it. If you know somebody struggling with similar issues, and please leave us a rating and a review. You can mention David and thank him for being on in a rating or a review for us. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.